You're listening to MMA Think Tank with Jay and Mike.
Welcome to the MMA Think Tank Podcast. I'm your host, Jay. Along with me is my co-host, Mike. Mike, it's been another 2 weeks. How have you been?
Pretty good, man. I'm excited that now all I can concentrate on is mixed martial arts because Super Bowl was yesterday, and I love me some football, but now it's done. But great, what's great about MMA, is it's year-round.
Yeah, just to touch on that a bit, I thought it was the worst Super Bowl game in a long time. Just boring, just very boring. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about UFC Fight Night 82 that just happened. Of course, that was Johnny Hendricks versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Let's get into that fight. Stephen Thompson, just an animal that night. Well,
yeah.
What'd you think, man?
I was surprised in what went down and how fast it did. I thought that he could win the fight, but I think most of us thought Johnny Hendricks would get inside, use his wrestling, and at some point knock him out or win the decision through takedowns. But man, if he didn't just, I don't know, he looked like kind of like Conor McGregor of the welterweight division with his movement and kicks and jumping in with strikes. He made Johnny Hendricks look just bad.
Yeah,
and I realized that with Hendricks, his style is so much different to Wonderboy's, and Wonderboy's is kind of the newer style that's kind of starting to pick up. But I still didn't think, I still thought that maybe even in the middle of the fight, Hendricks might be able to get him down. He didn't. He almost did, but Jay, go ahead and piggyback off that.
Man, yeah, he looked on another level for sure. And Johnny Hendricks is the number 2 guy, and Johnny Hendricks is just a beast himself. And he came in looking in the best shape I've seen him in. And I really thought this was going to be a really good fight. And it turned out to be just a one-sided, just straight up whooping, It was crazy how bad Wonderboy Thompson put it to him. I wasn't expecting that at all. To get TKO'd like that by Thompson in the first round as well is just crazy to me. Like, if you would have told me that that's what you were expecting, I would have just laughed at you. I would have laughed.
Yeah, and this was one of those fights that I thought was a really good matchup, not really stylistically, but to see where both guys were, especially with Johnny Hendricks coming off the bad weight cut, and Stephen Thompson. He had, I believe it was 6. Wonderboy had like 6 wins in a row. He had just beaten Ellenberger. Head kick knocked out that guy, and Ellenberger, of course, is he's a lot easier of an opponent. A little worse in his career now than Hendricks is at number 2. But I thought we'd come out of it saying, okay, Wonderboy's for real. He couldn't beat Hendricks, but he looked good. The maturation process, the growth, that's coming along. But no, he blew that out the water, blew the doors open. And I'd like to see him fight for the title now. I realize you've got Woodley looking for it. And, a lot of people have been talking about how, not Hendricks, how Wonderboy needs to fight a couple more people or one more contender. And I hear you guys. I understand that. He hasn't beaten McDonald. He hasn't beaten Woodley. But he just beat the number 2 guy. So I'm fine with putting him in there if the UFC wants to do that.
Well, his last loss was against Matt Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt Brown. And this was back in 2012. Mm-hmm. Well, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is definitely on a different level than he was back in 2012. And you're right, he was on a 6-fight win streak, now a 7. And beating guys like Cote, Ellenberger, Whitaker.
Cote's been looking good lately.
Well, yeah, that's true. But, I mean, he knocked out Ellenberger, and now he's TKO'd the number 2 guy. Man, he's up there for contention for sure. I think that, Woodley's been up there too. So, Woodley's got a good case, though, right now. Maybe one more fight against a, top 5 guy for Wonderboy, and we'll see. I mean,
it'll be interesting to me because right now you look at who Lawler has fought. He's already fought Hendricks. He's fought McDonald. If you Wonderboy's a fresh contender. All that's really left, in my opinion, the top 5 or they're really like dangerous is Wonderboy and Woodley. And so if assuming Woodley gets the shot, that's fine. He's deserved. That's great. But if you put then Wonderboy against say McDonald and McDonald wins, well now you've got another rematch for him. And their first fight was fantastic, of course, with Lawler and McDonald. But I really hope that either they put Wonder Boy on the sidelines or give him an easier fight, because to me, there's only really just Woodley, Wonder Boy, and Maya. So I don't think you want to get rid of all your contenders, but the UFC is not afraid to do rematches really quickly. So
yeah, and if we're talking about who's got the best chance against Lawler, Wonder Boy all day. If we're talking between Woodley, and Thompson, I think Thompson has just got the skill set that Lawler's not been accustomed to in his recent fights. He's different. The way he kept Hendricks away from him with those kicks, with those punches, it was just very smart, very calculated, and he looked like just a total beast in there. And I could see him doing that against Lawler too. With Woodley, you get another fight kind of like he's been having. You got a guy who fights on the inside as well, and it's going to turn into another brawl. And then you look at the other side of the coin. You see
which he's great at, by the way.
yeah. He's a great brawler, and he's had the golden horseshoe for a while now, and he's gotten knocked down, but not knocked out. And I think that the fight with Wonderboy Thompson would be his hardest fight at this point.
Yeah, before this fight, I know I've told you guys that I thought Damian Maia is his toughest fight, because if Damian Maia gets a hold of him, Damian Maia is a crazy Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wizard. But now that I've seen what Wonderboy has, I would just put him above Maia. But like you said, this whole golden horseshoe thing, a lot of people got angry with Benson Henderson winning some decisions maybe he shouldn't have won. And Lawler is to me is similar to that, except for he's just a better showman about it. He really bites down his mouthpiece and really goes to war. But yeah, Thompson to me was already a great showman, was already a great likable guy. Now, he's marketable, just as marketable in my opinion as Robbie Lawler is if he becomes champ. Differently, of course. We've got Lawler's this bite down your mouthpiece, tough guy who swings for the fences. Whereas you just are in awe of Wonder Boy when he's on it, what he does.
Yeah, and he's definitely looked like he's gotten better, a lot better. This last fight really just blew my mind, honestly, the way he demolished Johnny Hendricks. Guys, if you haven't seen this fight, go watch it. It's crazy. He just demolished Johnny Hendricks.
Like 2.5 minutes.
And he made Johnny Hendricks look like that little kid that he just stole his milk money from, Yeah. And Johnny couldn't get it back. And
this was a fit Hendricks too, Jerry. Remember the pictures he was having?
That's what I was saying. It was the best looking Johnny Hendricks I've seen physically. And man, it just didn't go his way at all in any way. So TKO, man, first round. That's just nuts. Let's move on to the next fight, Mike, which was Roy Nelson against Jared Rosholt. Mike, what do you got to say about this fight? Because let me just put it out there. I don't have much to say on this fight because for me, the heavyweight division is just sad, and this was another case of that. And it just further proved my point on the heavyweight division and where it's at. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about it because really the fight was very lackluster, and it came down to first of all, it was a decision. It went to Big Country. It went to Roy Nelson. It was 30-27, 30-27, 29-28, I believe. But all three judges were for Nelson. Nelson was fighting, in my opinion, just to not lose. The guy was on like a 4-fight losing streak. I think he needed this win. He knew it. He didn't want to get in Rocholt's face too much, so he wouldn't get taken down and ridden on the rest of the round to then lose a decision. I think that's what was going on because Big Country, he's not afraid to let the leather fly. He's not afraid to get in there and get some of his fights with Dos Santos, with I believe Carwin, some of these other big guys. He can take a punch and he can give it. But I think it just comes down to, look, I need a win because 5 in a row, even in this heavyweight division that doesn't have a lot of stars like we've talked about in the past, that's what it was, I think. Yeah.
I just, I don't have much to say on this fight. I sort of tuned out while I was watching it. My brain just tuned out. A decision win in the heavyweight division used to be unheard of. And now it seems like we're getting more and more of those. And
Let me add something too. Oh, sorry, Jay. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Add to it.
Yeah, it's. I talked about about Big Country, but this is really something that Jared Rosholt really needed to step up and do something here. He's kind of a prospect, and seeing Rosholt in his last few fights, he's a prospect, but his biggest name was Stefan Struve that he beat, and that's fine. But even though Big Country's not that much of a step over Stefan Struve, he did knock out Stefan Struve. Big Country did a while back. He's still a name for Rosholt to grow, and he wouldn't pull the trigger, or he couldn't pull the trigger. So as prospects go, it's not. I think this is pretty much a sad state for the heavyweight division if that's one of your prospects.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So yeah, not much to talk about on that fight. What fight do you want to jump to next on that card? I think Benavidez, Makovsky, fun size.
Yeah, I liked that fight. I was I was rooting for Benavidez. I'm an alpha male guy, and I've liked him for a while. And there's Benavidez actually trained trained with alpha male and outside of alpha male to get ready for this fight. Another win by Benavidez. He was just a little better. I wrote on Facebook, this truly showed what one guy at the top of the top 10 looks like fighting a guy at the bottom of the top 10. Basically, Benavidez was just a little faster, a little better, and Makovsky got some slams in or takedowns, couple on the round 1 and 2. But even after that, Benavidez would get up and just look better with volume and strikes.
Yeah,
what'd you think, Jay?
I agree. I think this was outside of the main event and the Thompson demolishing Hendricks, I thought this was the best fight. It was very entertaining. It was a lot of back and forth, and I at times I was just waiting for Makovsky just to get one of those swings to connect. And he's a dangerous guy. You could tell he hits hard, but so does Benavidez. He had some of his own. It was a great fight. I like these lighter guys. I'm just so impressed by them. Their gas tanks go for days, and just their skill sets. It seems like they've got so many good, talented guys in that division. And Makovsky being at the bottom of the top 10, he's still no slouch, Mike. He's still there. He's still any one of these guys in the top 10 could become a contender. For that belt. That's how good they are.
I think Makovsky showed that too. I mean, he was just a little bit behind, but he was he took Benavidez down a couple of times. And Fun Size was a former Bellator bantamweight champ before they got the flyweights. So he's put in his time. He's done a lot of good stuff. A couple more fights, I'm sure he's gonna rise up and get to the top 5 because not many people beat Joseph Benavidez. I mean, there's only 2 people. I mean, Dominic Cruz and Mighty Mouse. Yep. That's it. So to me, I thought he came across really well. Whereas Rosholt, even though looked horrible in my opinion and what he had to do, even though Zach Makovsky lost this fight, I thought it showed him in a really really well spotlight.
Yeah, I agree. And where do you think Benavidez goes from here, though? I mean, does he fight for the title soon?
I mean, right now we'll talk about later in the news, but Henry Cejudo is fighting Mighty Mouse now for the title, which we all pretty much figured was going to happen.
Yeah,
I think what they'll do is they'll have Benavidez sit, or they'll give him another fight that's not in the top 5, and he'll beat that guy, and then have to fight for the title if Mighty Mouse doesn't move up.
Yeah, and if Mighty Mouse does win against Cejudo, which I believe he will, it's going to be a tough fight for Benavidez for sure. Mighty Mouse is just amazing. But Makovsky, where does he go from here? I mean, all I can see is him going up from here. I mean, he performed very well. I don't see him really losing his position.
I might have a name for you, and I'm not sure how many people watched the prelims for this fight. They're of course also free on Fox Sports 1, and that's Justin Scoggins. He put a hurt on his opponent. He looked really good, very athletic looking guy, fast, like the great flyweights are. Yeah. And I'm not saying that he should fight Benavidez, but with how ranked Makovsky is, maybe the Scoggins guy could get in there and fight him. But he looks like a pretty good prospect from the prelims, and that's something I think we should maybe try and do too. Is maybe bring up a really good prelim. Well, a lot of times we do bring up good prelims. I shouldn't say that, but that was one of those guys who deserved to be talked about.
Yeah, Scoggins did put it on, and it was a great outing for him. I've been impressed with a lot of the prelims lately. So there's a lot of up-and-coming guys that are really fun to watch. And so don't sleep on those prelims, people. Watch them. They're great.
Yeah, Jay's been talking about to me, like, we watch all the fights, but it's more than once in the last couple months where he said the prelims were better. These guys wanting to get to the showtime. Scoggins is one of those guys. This time, Jay, can you think of one from maybe last couple months you might think of? Or
Not at the moment. I know there was a guy named Sanders, I believe was his last name, and not Bernie, by the way. But he really impressed me. I believe his name was Sanders. Can't think
Bernie
of his
Sanders
first name.
fought for $27.
$27. Anyway, I don't know what that's about, Mike, but I've heard that clip. I don't know what he's talking about.
Not to get too political, but basically when they talked about the first caucus in Iowa, how many votes they got compared to how much money they spent to get out there and get, and it was $27 a vote basically compared to people doing thousands and stuff like that.
$27.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The Bernie Sanders shtick is over.
Yes, it is.
Let's go into let's go into UFC on Fox 18. And that, of course, was a couple of weeks ago, guys. When we last left you, we had this fight. Anthony Johnson versus Ryan Bader. What did you think about this fight, Mike?
Man, I didn't know it was going to go that quick, just like with Wonder Boy, except for I figured that it would be who won, which was Anthony Johnson. But man, this Neil Melanson guy that he's been training with now for the grappling. I mean, Neil Mellanson's been around for a while. I know that Matt Hughes has trained with him and a couple other fighters I really liked. He already is a pretty big name, I guess, in the grappling community. But man, it's been barely a year, if that. And Johnson just looked amazing the way he just got on top of Bader. Bader shooting in really too early. I think something that I'll say about what Daniel Cormier said. He said he thinks he was too afraid to get hit early on, and so he shot too far. And normally, Bader can get up. But Johnson was just on him and couldn't get away and pounded him out. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah,
quickly, like what, a minute and a half?
Yeah, and I want to say that those shots were pretty short hooks. They weren't really raining down as hard as he could have, and he knocked him out completely. We both saw it coming. I didn't see it happening this fashion and exactly what happened. But, yeah, I pretty much thought that he'd knock out Bader pretty quickly. But not in a minute 13. I didn't think it would happen all that quickly. Anthony Johnson, though, man, we've talked about this before. This guy, he should be, he needs his fight against Jones. And I think that's going to happen eventually. I think it needs to happen, and I'm going to say it, and I don't care if people think I'm crazy, but he's going to knock out John Jones. I just think that, just because he didn't knock out Cormier, it doesn't mean anything. I think Cormier's got an extraordinary chin, and who knocks out Cormier? I mean, the guy's just a tough.
Nobody has.
Yeah, he's a tough beast. But I think that Jones has his number, so Jones will beat Cormier again. And it's the gas tank factor with Cormier. He just doesn't have it. With Anthony Johnson, there's also a question of his gas tank. Now, with this new grappling coach and everything, I don't know if this will help extend his gas tank. It may. Who knows? But the jury's still out on that. I think that he's going to make quick work of Jones when they do fight. And I know I'm talking ahead here, but I just see this fight coming to fruition. It's going to happen. It's going to be – we all know it. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time now.
Yeah, hopefully they let him sit, but possibly they'll probably give him another fight before that, since Cormier is fighting Jones. I'm still picking Jones to beat Johnson. Jones has a pretty good chin as well, from getting punches like from Glover and some other people. But one thing I'll agree with you is that Johnson has probably the hardest punches. Yeah. So we'll see what happens if he can absorb that. Also, Cormier is kind of a bigger guy in so much of how he carries his weight and how much he's been like in wrestling and how just how he carries himself in the cage. I would still pick Jones to at some point get a sub on Johnson. I just think it's a little too big. But man, I'll tell you what, I'm rooting for Johnson to get that win because I love some Anthony Johnson. He goes back to the beginning of when you and I started watching fights together. When that comes, we'll certainly see.
Yeah.
But it also comes to when I see the face-off. And I haven't looked at, because they haven't fought yet or they're not booked yet, I haven't seen the reach advantage and things like that. And when you're fighting Anthony Johnson, that's a big deal.
Well, John Jones definitely will have the reach advantage. We know that. By how much, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, he's long. Yeah, you're right.
But as far as that fight goes, I mean, we're talking way ahead here. But I'm just excited because that fight is the fight that I think everybody wants to see.
We saw it before Jones got in his vehicular troubles.
Yeah, which we'll talk about that later, about him getting into a little bit more trouble.
Yeah.
In the news segment. Anyway. But yeah, so Anthony Johnson wins in just a minute 13, KOs Ryan Bader like Ryan Bader's never been KO'd before.
Right.
So anyway, moving on from that fight, Mike, we had Josh Barnett versus Ben Rothwell. Again, it's a heavyweight fight. I'll let you take over here. Go ahead and speak on this. I'll
talk, Jay, but of course, chime in when something tickles your ear. This was a fight that I was very, very angry to watch while it was going on. I am a Josh Barnett fan. I like him as a fighter. I like him as a personality. I like the guy. I've met the guy a couple of times. The guy you see on the mic in interviews, that's the guy he is in person, okay? And for the life of me, I don't know why he didn't mix it up. He just wanted to stand with a guy that whose whole game is knocking you out. I never saw Barnett really try and take him down or anything like that. Now, of course, the fight ended in the second round, I believe, via a choke. Some go-go plata or something is what not Barnett, Rothwell said, but it looked like a choke to me, to a lot of people. But either way, he submitted him, and that's a huge feather in Rothwell's cap. I mean, Barnett's never been traditionally submitted. He's been hurt and had to tap for pain and things like that. But Barnett now slips a little. He's no longer one of those guys who's really in the mix. He's lost maybe like 2 of his last 3, I think, something like that. And Rothwell has just come on strong. He's got, I don't know, Jay, if you want to look it up, or I mean, I can look it up. I think he's won 4 in a row, and he's finished. I know Rothwell has finished former champs in Barnett now, and he also finished Overeem. So. This guy's on a tear. Does that mean he's going to defeat any of the next top 3 guys? I don't know. Probably not.
Well,
but that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, he is on a 4-fight win streak. He beat Matt Mitrione, Alistair Overeem, and Brandon Vera. Aside from Vera, he's beat some pretty decent people there.
So he's legit is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but he's legit in a division that isn't so legit.
But he's legit for that.
Yeah,
that's legit division.
Yeah, I don't like his fighting style at all. I'm not a Ben Rothwell fan at all. I think I'm not a fan of this division much at all. Anyway,
Jay, the plotting style and throwing hooks. The plotting style is where it's at, brother. You
gotta
get bored with the overweight guys.
He looks like a giant. He looked like a giant bear pawing at his dinner. Before he killed it. Okay, that's the way he looks when he fights. I don't care for his fight style. It may be working for him, obviously. Josh Barnett, I will say that I like him as a person. I think he's interesting, and I think that he's well spoken, and I like to hear him talk. But sometimes even fight. But that last fight was just horrible. His game plan was just horrible, and he fought against a slow fighter like Ben Rothwell and lost. It shocked me. I thought he was going to win, but
it shocked me as well. I thought he was going to. I almost said mop the floor with him, and that's not the right metaphor to use. But I thought he was going to put him on the floor and submit him within 2 rounds.
Yeah. Didn't happen, folks. Ben Rothwell, won, and it's and subbed him. So round 2, minute 12 in round 2, subbed Josh Barnett.
And something to add too that I just remembered too is that this is the second loss in a row. Not that Barnett hasn't lost 2 in a row, but his last 2 losses were up against the fence with somebody holding on to him, with him pushing them against the fence. The Travis Brown knockout with the elbows, and now he's pressing Rothwell up against the fence, and he gets submitted. So this is something obviously he's going to have to work on, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. Mike, we also had on that card Sage Northcutt, Super Sage Northcutt, who wasn't so super, by the way, against Brian Barberina. Brian Barberina coming into the octagon with a very famous fighter in his corner, Mike. Why don't you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I'm a Sage Northcutt fan, but even a bigger Benson Henderson fan. And when I saw the weigh-in, when he walked in with Benson Henderson, I said, "Oh man, this is not good. This Barberina guy, he's got a lot of knockouts, but he's training with Benson Henderson. That means he's not just some guy who just got signed after Battle at the Barn or something like that." So I was worried for Sage. I'll just say going in before the news dropped that he was sick and all that, I thought that Sage looked good on his feet. A lot of guys would have got hurt worse than Barberina was. Sage looked great on his feet, but then when he got taken down in the second round, got the arm choked or arm triangle. Looked horrible because it was in half guard.
Yeah, it was a head and arm choke. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it came out that Sage was hospitalized for strep throat like 2 days before that. Dana said you don't have to fight, but he wanted to fight, and this is something, Jay, I don't know that if we've talked about on the podcast, but I know you've talked to me about it. His dad being a big part of his career. His dad said we want the fight, and he shouldn't have fought. Even coming out later, Dana White said I shouldn't have let the guy fight. He was so sick. But yeah, he was hospitalized, and that's why he couldn't make 155. By the way, it was at 170. That's why he couldn't make 155.
Yeah, Northcutt even said as much. He said that he was sick and he shouldn't have taken that fight. I guess it was to the point where he couldn't really breathe that well, and when he got in the head and arm choke, he said, and I quote, "It was like breathing through a small straw." Mm-hmm. And he just couldn't deal with it. So that's why he tapped so fast. And he said he couldn't even push off Barberina because he had no strength. And he said he definitely will not show up sick again. If he's sick next time, he's not taking the fight. But yeah, and that said, he's also moving to TriStar full time. So that's good to know because we've been calling that for a while now. We've been saying, hey, you need to get back to TriStar because your ground game needs fixing. And but even that said, even with his ground game being not so great, I think that the sickness, if that was out of the equation, I think that he probably would have beat Barberina. But of course, we have no way of knowing,
Yeah, and I'd like to say too that
congrats to Barberina though.
That's what I was going to say is that I think that Barberina still looked good for not just taking the punches, but good firing back, good awareness on the ground. And some people said, before this all came out, did he steal Northcutt's, prospect status or his vibe or whatever? And I don't think he did, but I think he gained some of his own. I think he looks like a good young up-and-comer from a great camp. So I think we could see some really good things from this guy at 155 since they both, fight at 155.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think he stole any of that thunder. I think that Barberina, if he were to never fight again in the UFC, nobody would even ask questions at this point. And I know that kind of sounds harsh, but I'm just saying this guy's come out of nowhere, okay? And I don't see how this guy has stolen anything from Sage Northcutt, especially now that it came out that Sage Northcutt was sick, and he shouldn't have fought.
Yeah, there's something too that was interesting. I read a little later, which was when Benson Henderson was interviewed, I guess on the MMA Hour, some small podcast maybe you guys have heard of. I don't know, but I guess Ariel asked him what he said to Sage in the cage because they talked a little bit. Yeah, it was really cool. Just another reason I'm a big fan of Benson Henderson, and it's not just Benson Henderson that does this, but he said, "Look, man, don't let this loss define you. Mm-hmm. Just use it, and it's okay. Just go back, train. use it as fuel, and that's just a testament to Benson Henderson. We'll talk more about him later, but I thought that's one of the things I love about this sport.
Yeah.
Is that these guys respect each other at the highest level if they're cordial to each other, if they're not, calling each other's family names or whatever. There's a camaraderie there, and I thought that was really cool. And even Matt Serra, brash Matt Serra, who said F him after Anderson Silva got his leg busted. Cold North Cut, dude, don't worry about it. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah,
Mike. North Cut can only go up from here now. And now with him training full time at TriStar, I think that he's going to get better, and the guy's going to be, he'll come back.
Well, that's what's interesting. I'm sorry to cut you off. I remember now. He's full time, but he's still 19 years old, still trying to go to college, Jay. So how much is that full time? I don't know. So it may not be the full time we're normally hearing about, but at least he's going to be at that gym all the time when he's training, as opposed to partially there and partially in his old gym.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Mike. Well, that about wraps it up for the fights that we've watched the past couple weeks. Let's get into some news.
News Corner.
What do you have for us?
Well, we got a ton of news. We actually kind of got rid of some of the news for the podcast because we've got it on the Facebook page whenever it drops. I try and put it up there. But the next big, speaking of UFC on Fox 18 that we had just discussed, the main card I think is full now for UFC on Fox 19, which is going to be on April 16th. Let me just run down these fights quickly, and then we can maybe touch on them. Main event: Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean, amazing fight. You might be thinking, I thought Ferguson was taking on Johnson. Yeah, well, it was out there, and for some reason they took Michael Johnson off the card, maybe because Nurmagomedov is healthy now. So you got that, the main event. Then you've got Shogun versus Rashad Evans, Machida versus Lyoto Machida versus Dan Henderson 2, and another great rematch, Rose Namajunas versus Tisha Torres 2. So, Jay, what do you think about that card?
I am a big fan of Tony Ferguson. So big ups to Tony Ferguson. I think this fight is going to be his hardest fight to date.
Oh, yeah.
Nurmagomedov is just a beast. And, he was a beast when we saw him last, an eternity ago?
Yeah, I think it was like 2 years ago.
Hopefully he's back and he's 100% because I don't want any...
his words, though.
I don't want any excuses from this man if he gets beat. So please come in 100%. And put a good show on for us, both of you. I know Tony will bring it. Shogun versus Evans, then we get into a couple of fights that it's like the battle of the has-beens.
Well, let me give you my take then on Ferguson and Nurmagomedov before we get into that. And I agree with you, Jay.
Go ahead.
These next couple fights are kind of like just fan favorites going at the end of their careers. But I love Ferguson too. Ever since the Tough Show, he's grown. He looks amazing. I think he's going to win this fight. I'll just say that. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. He's one of those guys that is, to me, with Chris Weidman, Sage Northcutt, Ferguson's those new guys I'm following now that Hughes is gone and Couture is gone and Faber and Henderson are nearing, not to say the end of their career, but they're nearing
the end of their career. You're right on that. You're right. But yeah, Shogun versus Evans, I am not looking forward to this at all, and I'm not looking forward to Machida versus Henderson too. Sorry, but I'm not excited by the H-bomb anymore. But I will say this. Saying that I'm not excited for him, I will still watch it and I will still be entertained much more than I would be watching any heavyweight fight. That's for sure. Right. I can tell you that right now.
For me, sorry.
Go ahead. What are your thoughts on these fights?
For those two fights we just talked about, for Shogun and Evans and Machida Henderson, and Machida did win by split decision in UFC 157. Yeah, it's like a year or two ago, I think 2 years ago. So, that's neither here nor there. I just want to make sure fans, if they remember who won that fight, but it was a split decision. So Machida, Henderson, whoever wins this fight, I guess is the better guy at this stage in the game. But I look at these as kind of legacy fights. I'm sure we would have liked to have seen these guys fight 5 years ago, even 10 years ago when you look at like someone like Shogun. Yeah. But these big names, they're finally fighting. Now look, they're not, combined 100 years old like Gracie and Shamrock is going to be. But they're still guys that have the tools, so I'm excited as much for that.
Yeah, but I mean, when it all comes down to it, it's a payday for them. That's what it all comes down to. It's just a payday. And
I disagree. I mean, I look at it. It's not for the rankings. I'll say it's not for the rankings, but it's for their legacy. They want to say, look, I beat Shogun. I beat Henderson. You know.
Yeah, but then saying you beat somebody who's in their 80s, when you say something like that, it doesn't have the same thing, the same ring to it. We also have Namajunas versus Tisha Torres too, and Namajunas I'm a big fan of as well. I think she looked fantastic against Paige Van Zandt when I thought Paige Van Zandt was going to win that fight. Mm-hmm. Stupidly, I picked Paige to win that fight. But you know what? Namajunas is looking great, and I can't wait to see her fight again. I think she wins this, though. I think she wins this fight.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me to call right now, but it's certainly a rematch that is worthy of the rankings and does mean something. Unlike, say, not Shogun, sorry. Unlike Machida and Henderson, and Torres is undefeated. If you don't count the unofficial fights on the Ultimate Fighter, Namajunas, she's got the 2 losses, but they're losses against good people. Like Esparza, I think, is one of them, and she's just been on a tear, like you said. But Tisha Torres, the way she comes forward with her strikes, she's kind of a little bulldog. I'm excited for this fight. I'm glad it's on the main card. I'm glad they're being showcased.
I think Namajunas has gotten better since those losses. So I think that this is going to be a great fight for both of them. And they're going to bring
later,
it.
I think, too. Maybe.
Yeah, I could see that. Namajunas, if she wins, I could definitely see her going for that title. Yeah, but Tisha Torres, I'm not taking away anything from her as well. She, like you said, she hasn't really lost officially. Great fighter. Like you said, comes forward, swings, and, swings for the fences at times. But we'll see how she reacts to the new Namajunas, I want to see what happens with that fight.
Yeah, it could be her detriment, too, with moving forward and not looking out to getting submitted off the ground from Namajunas. But she may be able to put something together to hurt Namajunas. So, yeah, I'm excited, brother.
Yeah, that sounds good, Mike. All right, so what else you got for us, Mike?
Fights come out different times for different, in the future differently. So one thing, we're going to jump ahead quite a bit, another month past that. Damian Maia versus Matt Brown is going to be at Fight Night 87 on May 14th. I'm really excited about that fight. You and I both love some Matt Brown, the Immortal One. I love and respect Damian Maia and what he does in the cage. This is just going to be a fine fight, a free fight to watch. I think this is going to be a fight that Maia needs to win to continue to get close to that title. And it's a fight for, in my opinion, for Matt Brown, that he needs this win because a lot of his wins have been against the bottom of the top 10, but not against the top of the top 10. Jay, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. He needs this win, definitely. I'm not saying he needs it as in he's going to get kicked out of the UFC if he doesn't win.
I agree.
Matt Brown has been winning fights, but like you said, it's not been against the greatest of opponents. On the other hand, you have Damian Maia, who has been on a tear. Maia's looked really good. And what's crazy is it seems like the older he gets, like he's just getting better. It's just odd to me. What do you have to say about that?
I think it has to do with him maybe dropping the weight class down to welterweight. He put away Neil Magny, stopped him on his run, and just beat Gunnar Nelson in his last fight with another guy who's a really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, good prospect. Like I said, I like Damian Maia, respectful guy, a guy that has taken his specialty and has learned the rest of the tricks of the trade for mixed martial arts, but still knows who he is. And I love that about him. There's a lot of guys we talk about, fall in love with their hands, or they just want to lay and pray, and all those kind of the terms we throw out as fans and analysts and things like that. And I love that about Maia, and I think he knows who he is now.
Yeah, and with Matt Brown, though, I mean, he did beat Tim Means, okay, sub Tim Means, but Tim Means just got popped recently for PEDs, unfortunately, but lost to Johnny Hendricks, Robbie Lawler. But it's Robbie Lawler and Johnny Hendricks. What are you going to do? And it was decision losses there. But
that's like in his last 10 fights. Those are the only times he's lost, I think.
Yeah. And that was just right before the win against Tim Means. Those were back-to-back losses against Robbie Lawler and Johnny Hendricks. And like I said, decision losses as well. And before that, he was on a knockout terror, He beat so many people, from Mike Pyle, Eric Silva, Jordan Main, bunch of guys. And he was just knocking people out.
Yeah, I wish Jordan Mean had not retired last year. That was a good fight. I'll never forget the Eric Silva fight. That fight, Silva put it on him early, and he came back and won that fight.
Yes, one of the best fights ever.
Yeah, exactly.
It really was. Well, it was one of the best comeback fights ever, I should say.
Yeah.
It was just great. Matt Brown, so who do you think would win? Just throwing it out there, who do you think would win this fight? I know it's so far away, but
I'm gonna go with Damian Maia. I think he at some point grabs a hold of Matt Brown and gets it done. Now, I don't want to keep making it sound like that if Damian Maia touches you with his pinky, it's all over. Please, people out there, don't think that. He doesn't have some magical touch where like Spider-Man just grabs a hold of you. But I really think that Matt Brown is one of those fan favorite fighters we all love, who's a fantastic fighter. You don't put this kind of win streak on beating some decent guys and then go to decisions with the best of the best and not be a great fighter. But I think Maia will be able to get inside and get some sort of choke on him. Won't look as bad as Neil Magny looked. I don't know. I don't think so. Because Matt Brown is a straight up gamer. But that's, if I have to call it, that's what I'm going to call it.
And I think that's a smart call, and I'll probably go with the same thing, unless he loses to a decision against Matt Brown. Because if you look at his career, Damian Maia doesn't get knocked out, with the exception of one time back in 2009 against Nate Marquardt. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and that was a quick knockout too.
Yeah.
That was the one that was like he walked up and just punched him in the face.
Mm-hmm. Other than that, all his losses have been decisions. So he doesn't get subbed, and he doesn't usually get knocked out. So for Matt Brown to win this fight, I think it's going to come down to a decision win for Matt Brown. But I'm picking Maia as well. I really think that Maia, at this point, I think Maia is going to win.
Yeah. Do you put him? Where do you put if Maia wins?
I say you have to. I say you have to. You have to put him in for the hunt for the title. You have to get him up there.
Yeah.
He has to fight for the title soon.
That's what we were talking about. With Wonder Boy, is that where is Maia in that mix? And I don't know if I put him above Wonder Boy after what Wonder Boy looked like, but he's for sure there. And this welterweight division is just finally the contenders are coming and they're looking good.
There's so many good ones in this division that are worthy of that title, and it's kind of sad that we keep pushing Damian Maia back. And I say you let Wonder Boy Thompson wait, and you put Damian Maia ahead of him if he beats Matt Brown. Give him his shot while he's still young enough and.
Yeah, good call, because Maia was Maia like 36, 37?
Yeah, he's getting up there, man.
Yeah.
So I think you got to let Maia get his shot in, and who knows? He could beat Robbie Lawler if Robbie Lawler still has it. So
yeah.
But yeah, what else you got for us, Mike?
Let's take a break from some of this, calling fights and fight announcements, and just say that Chael P. Sonnen, the gangster from West Lynn, is going to be on Celebrity Apprentice.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Okay. I'm not a fan. I don't really watch Celebrity Apprentice, but I might tune in to see what this guy has to say, because whenever he opens his mouth, it's always, something there is going to turn into gold,
And that's exactly why you should turn in, people. Tune in.
And so I think I'm going to tune into this Celebrity Apprentice and check it out. But Sonnen has his own podcast, and I've been listening to a little bit of that every now and then. It's good. It's a good podcast.
The guys, kind of a background to Celebrity Apprentice. I first started watching it, and I haven't watched every season because it depends on what B-list celebrities are on there. But I watched the one with that had Tito Ortiz. I think it was the third Celebrity Apprentice. Yeah. And I wanted to see it just for Tito Ortiz. And the Tito Ortiz you saw on the mic and everything at UFC, completely different guy on Celebrity Apprentice, because the Celebrity Apprentice, what it does is they raise money for different causes. If your team wins, the project manager gets money for their nonprofit or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So basically, you're gonna see Chael Sonnen talking smack behind the backs of people and being a gentleman probably in front of the camera. But what's great about the show, and I don't want to get too far into the show because it's not really what our show is about, but he's going to say nice things behind the scenes, and bad things behind the scenes. But you'll really get a different take on these athletes that you've seen, either in the cage or at the ballpark.
Yeah, you get to see what they're like outside of the cage, talking to normal everyday folk, or other celebrities, I guess I should say.
Yep.
And see how they interact and everything. But good for him. I mean, more exposure, and he's making some more dollars.
Yes.
And,
well, he won't get paid for it, but he'll get paid for whatever his charity is.
Well, yeah. And I wonder what his charity is going to be. Doesn't say, does it?
I haven't seen anything on it yet, but I'm sure we'll figure it out as soon as it happens.
It's probably for the gangsters of Westland. Anyway, also, Mike, you want to talk a little bit about Benson Henderson?
Yeah, I think it's a good changeover right now just to get into some Bellator stuff. Benson Henderson's been my favorite fighter ever since I've seen him fight in the MFC. And now I saw him go to the WEC, win the title there, come over to the UFC, win the title there. Well, now he's going to look to win the 170 title, the welterweight title at Bellator. Woke up in the morning, saw he signed, knew it was a possibility, hoped he wasn't going to. I understand his signing. I'm going to be watching him for free, which is great. Try to get that second title in a different or another title in a different division. I've come to terms with it because it's been about 5 days. It's a big pickup for Bellator. We'll see who comes next, but I think he's going to smash everybody he faces, Jay.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's going to be the belt holder there, and I think that's
at 170 at least.
And I think that's one of the reasons why he's there as well, because he's heading towards the end of his career, and I think he wants to hold gold. And the money was a big part of it. The sponsorship deals apparently was one of the biggest reasons why he left the UFC.
Yeah.
He does not care, much like many other fighters in the UFC. They don't care much for the Reebok deal.
Yeah.
Some are content with it, but most are not. And apparently he's one of them. But I will say, though, that I've heard several interviews since he's signed with Bellator, and he's been so gracious and courteous towards the UFC.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly saying that, he thanks them for everything they've done for him, and, gave him and let him do within that organization. And he's just a class act all the way around. Benson Henderson, you got to love the guy. He's a class act.
Even when Dana White treated him pretty fairly compared to what Dana White does when guys leave the organization. Said he was a good guy. He's gonna miss him, all that kind of stuff. He did have that parting shot of, Benson Henderson is like a top 15 guy, though. We're looking for guys that are going more towards the top 10 or whatever the thing was. And of course, Benson was a lightweight champ. He had 2 losses. Against good competition, Cowboy, that some people thought he won, and of course against Rafael Dos Anjos. And then he decided, okay, I've done, I guess, all I can as a lightweight, as a champ, a defending champ. I'm going to try welterweight. Won 2 welterweight fights, and that's why he's ranked number 15, because he's got 2 fights at welterweight.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, Dana White, if you look in the past, just type in Google, Dana White hates blank fighter. You'll see what the vitriol comes. So they're pretty respectful as it comes for Dana White.
Yeah. Dana's got to get a little bit of a shot there, when somebody leaves and goes to another organization. That I can see why he does that, but at the same time, it's kind of a dick move. I'd have to say.
Yeah, I think he was hurt because he thinks that he gave him a better deal, and I disagree. According to Dana White, and I have no reason to to not believe him, that Benson would have made a lot more money on the backside of the deal, which is what he said, if he became champ again. The problem with that is I don't know if Benson Henderson becomes champ in the welterweight division.
Exactly.
And you're basically telling him to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and the sponsorships are huge for some of these guys.
Yeah.
You know, it's already been proven. It's been put out there. You can look this up on Google. There's been fighters that have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in sponsorship deals due to the Reebok deal. Hundreds of thousands. So we're not talking a few $1,000s here and there or a few hundred. We're talking hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can understand if he's losing out on a lot of money sponsorship-wise, it was a no-brainer for him to go.
And he just got married. He's even more just than that. He's just now got a little baby boy who's I think is 6 months. So he's thinking about this window I have. I don't have much time in this fight game. I'm sure he's going to go on and be a great coach and get paid at the MMA lab. So I'm sure he's not going to be one of those guys who has to open up a chicken shack to to continue living. But it's he's going to fight for the title.
Yeah.
I mean, right now. I mean, in April 22nd, he's fighting. Koreshkov, Andrei Koreshkov for the title in April. Immediate title shot. I think he's going to wipe the floor with him, and he's taking names, and he's gonna take a belt.
Yeah, we got other Bellator news as well. We have another fighter that used to be in UFC signing with Bellator, Chris Lieben. I didn't think I'd hear that name again fighting. What's up with that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't think he'd be coming back, but I guess, since his contract has been up for a while, and he had concussion problems for a long time, for at least a couple years. I think he's feeling a little better about it. Maybe he needs the money. I don't know. But if I was him, and this is pretty much all I know how to do, I'd go to Bellator as well. This is certainly not a Benson Henderson signing. This is a name we all know.
It's a name signing. It's a name signing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna put butts in the seat. And I'm one of those guys that, and you probably heard me, basically how I was describing the Henderson Shogun Machida. Excuse me, Shogun and Rashad and Henderson and Machida. For me, I'm willing to watch these fights when they're past their career, as long as they're not taking horrible punishment, because I like to see these guys fight as long as they can. That's how I feel about Lieben. But if he gets destroyed his first fight, he's got to hang it up. Hang it up.
Yeah, I agree. Chris Lieben, he was one of those fighters that everybody enjoyed watching back in the day, because you knew you were going to get a war.
Yeah.
But when he left, I thought that he was gone for good, and then I seen this name pop up, and I'm like, really? He's fighting again? Like, I kind of feel bad for him, because it must be because he needs money or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But moving on from that, but still within Bellator news, we have new weight divisions in Bellator.
Yeah, looks like Bellator is going back to the women's divisions. Now that Scott Coker is back, they're going to start a 125, a 145 women's division. So you've got the first flyweight divisions that I've seen outside of Invicta, of course, in a major promotion. And Scott Coker, man, he started the women's division basically for major MMA productions, and with Cyborg and with Gina Carano. So the 145s are back. Not a lot of big names right now, but they do have Marlos Kunin and Julia Budd for 145s, and I'm pretty sure Conan's going to be fighting Budd for the championship, if I remember correctly. And Carrie Melendez, known mostly as Gilbert Melendez's wife, but a great kickboxer in her own right. She's kind of the star right now at 125. And they're going to pick up some more people along the way, Scott Coker says. I like having the women fighters as long as you can get some good fighters. But I still think Bellator needs to kind of shore up a little bit more of their men's divisions. But hey, the more fighters, the better, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a gamble for them to start two weight divisions, Mike, women's weight divisions here without big names. You got Marlos Conan and Julia Budd, which a lot of people have heard of before, and even Carrie Melendez. But who else? Who else do they have?
Right.
Man, that's kind of hard when it seems like all the talent has already gone to either Invicta or UFC. I don't know what's going to happen there, but we shall see. They might have like one fight every few, fight cards that are women's fights.
Yeah, when they had what was it? The 135 division, or maybe it was, I'm not sure what division it was, but I think it was Jessica Aguilar might have been their champ. It didn't last very long. So
Yeah, I remember that.
That was not under Coker. Obviously, that was under Bjorn Rebney, a little different maybe. But they're at least doing the divisions the UFC does not have.
Yeah.
The UFC is doing 115 and 135. So, but yeah, interesting news. We'll see how it plans out.
Yeah, we shall see. Also, Mike, in the news, we have Rockhold Weidman 2, and that is in June, and that's at UFC 199. I'm excited for that fight. Really excited.
I'm really excited about that fight. There's the reason it's just June and not June 21st or June 4th or whatever is because they're looking for a venue right now, so they're not sure, but it's going to be in June, I guess.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. It's going to be in June, and I can't wait.
Yeah. Eyes peeled for that fight.
Exactly. And hopefully we'll get a good, healthy, strong Rockhold and Weidman this time.
Yeah, I want it to be known who the best fighter is. And, as a huge Chris Weidman fan, and I forgot to put Chris Weidman in the mix with Ferguson and Sage Northcutt and these other guys that are really carrying the torch for me, now, the young guys. But right now, I'll probably go with Rockhold again on this fight. But, both the guys are talking about how they didn't feel that great in the cage. And, I understand that. It's a big fight for you. But it's at least now I think we'll know.
Yeah, yeah. If Rockhold does in fact win, it's definitive. Not that it wasn't the first time, but at least, a lot of questions can
just
be
no
answered
questions
that
asked.
way. Yeah. Mike, also we have Tim Means tests out of Fight Night. I've touched on this a little bit earlier. Fight Night 83 against Cowboy. I guess he tested positive for some PEDs. Anything to say about that?
Yeah, so he's out of the fight, and now Cowboy's taking on another Cowboy, as everybody keeps saying, and I'm not afraid to say it. Cowboy versus Cowboy. Alex Cowboy Oliveira. He's a pretty good guy. He's got a lot of knockouts. Hasn't fought any of the number one competition, top 10 guys. Brazilian guy. Cowboy, just like Cerrone is, wears a cowboy hat, and likes to throw down. So this is going to be one of those things where it's not quite, say, Makovsky versus Benavidez, but it's pretty close, man. It's another guy that is above the other guy in not strengths, but how long they fought, experience, and how dangerous they are. So big ups to Oliveira to come in and take this fight, because certainly nobody needed it. Nobody could have picked it.
Now,
they could have just let it go.
Do you think that the UFC should market this as there can only be one Cowboy?
I did my best on the Facebook to do as much Cowboy imagery as I could when I talked about this fight. The cage is the OK Corral, and this guy's gonna make him look like a tenderfoot and all that stuff.
And then, and then I could see it. It's like they're gonna say something like in the promos. Rest assured, one Cowboy will win.
Yeah.
It's just something crazy.
Oh yeah. I'd like to see actually them in, walk on a dusty street with we're talking Old West style, with their hats on, in their jerseys and their Reebok stuff. Maybe they don't have 6-shooters or shotguns, but they come up and right when they're about to draw, it ends. I don't know.
But one Cowboy actually does ride bulls and stuff, and the other one, who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe
I would say if you're Brazilian and you're a Cowboy, you probably do something out in the field, so you must be doing something.
Maybe ride a bus. I don't know.
Speaking of Chael Sonnen.
Yeah. You know what? We didn't touch on something back when we were talking about Bellator. We still had a fight that you wanted to discuss between Bubba Jenkins and Yamaguchi.
Yeah, so Bubba Jenkins and Goiti Yamauchi, those guys are really good up-and-comer guys. You guys may have heard of Bubba Jenkins a little more because he's an American and came out of amateur wrestling, division top guy. I mean, really good guy. Like a lot of these wrestlers come in, train at mixed martial arts. A lot of these new guys come into Bellator first because they know they can get an easier fight, have a little bit of better training there on the come-up. Not training, but, get the easier fights and move on from there. So you probably have seen Jenkins fight before. Yamauchi, His last fight was really good. I believe he put a submission on the guy he fought. He's for real, man. Both these guys are for real, and this is not just a prospect battle. This basically could be for a title, not a title shot, but 1 or 2 fights away.
Yeah. And that's at Bellator 151?
Yeah.
Yeah. When is that?
But 151, let's see, we just had 148. It's a couple months, maybe.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Most of the
No
Bellator
date
stuff
set.
comes up within the next couple months, but
Okay. So no.
so it's still not the next. It's not for a few more shows. So
All right. And when they do start their women's division, when is that supposed to start?
they didn't say anything about it when I read about it. Scott Coker didn't really talk about it. They're waiting, however, for Julia Budd to get cleared to fight for to have a title fight. So I guess as soon as Julia Budd is cleared, then they'll start at least 1 or 2 fights.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like the Bellator 151 is Joe Warren versus Darian Caldwell, and yeah, that's in a couple of months, so
Okay.
not anytime soon. Yeah, guys, and also something that just happened within today and last night. Jones Cormier 2. That's right, John Bones Jones versus Daniel Cormier 2. And Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson versus Henry Cejudo at UFC 197. It's going to be April 23rd. They released that during the Fox Sports 1 broadcast. Really great. And the last thing they just released today, since we've been getting ready for the podcast, is Junior Dos Santos versus Ben Rothwell is now the main event at Fight Night 86 in Croatia. I've looked at the Croatian card before the JDS Rothwell was added, and the card didn't look very well. That's probably what my guess is. Maybe it's going to be a Fight Pass card. I don't know. But yeah, so 3 fights now in the last couple days, and those are some pretty good fights. Let me just quickly talk about JDS and Rothwell, Jay, and then of course we can get into all of them. But Rothwell, I think he kind of deserves a title shot, but they're going to give it to Stipe, which I understand. But they've decided, I guess, to give him another former champ. Then give him a title shot. So now he's going to have fought Barnett. He's going to have fought Overeem, and now he's fighting JDS. So
Yeah. No comment on that fight. I don't want to.
That's the only thing I'd.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that fight, but I understand.
The only thing I'd say then is that if he beats Junior Dos Santos, if Rothwell beats him, he's got to fight for the title next, and that's pretty much all I've got for you on that one.
We've touched on a bit with Cormier versus Jones. We knew that fight was coming. But
good call. That's right.
Jones actually got into a little bit of trouble today. Jones, I guess, or recently, I should say, Jones got caught driving without a license, registration, and insurance. So I'm wondering if there's going to be any backlash by the UFC on this. I don't know.
I don't think so, because it looks like they're not going to press charges. I saw that at first. When I first saw it, I was like, hey, what's going on? And they updated the story.
Boy, isn't that funny? They're not going to press charges. If it was somebody out there like you or I, and we get caught without a license, registration, and insurance, I'm sure that there's going to be something, to where we're going to be in trouble. And John Jones gets away with it.
Yeah, not a fine. I don't know how it works, but there was worry about his probation, if that affected his probation period, which I guess he's still on. It's not going to affect him. I look at it more, though, as,
wow,
John Jones, come on, man. You're so rich. And I realize money doesn't fix everything, but, you're so rich. You have this great camp behind you. You've got a great family, I'm sure. Just use
use your
keep your
head.
wallet on you. Keep your wallet. You know what I do? I go outside. I bring my wallet. Maybe I'm a working guy, and when I leave the house, I carry my wallet.
You use your head. Use your
that
head.
too.
and if you can't drive, get Uber. It's cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do something, but use your head.
It's just a head shakeable moment, Jay. Don't you think?
Yeah, it definitely is, and yeah, I just don't get it. Just keep your nose clean, and I mean that in every way possible. Jones, keep your nose clean.
That's funny.
So All right, moving on from that, of course, we also knew that Cejudo was going to be next for Demetrius Johnson. We saw that coming as well. This is a fight that I will say that while Cejudo is a great up-and-comer, looks great, fighting really well, I still say Demetrius Johnson's going to wipe the floor with him, basically. And I'm not saying that he's going to knock him out or anything, but I think that he's just too fast for Cejudo. I think that he's just going to get in and out and just, destroy him on the points.
I think that's a good call. I think the only thing that Mighty Mouse needs to worry about is that Cejudo is a silver medalist wrestler, and that basically means that at 10-0 with 4 fights, I believe, in the UFC, all by decisions, mind you, by Cejudo, but still, he's cut his teeth now in the big time in UFC. He's got a pedigree of wrestling. If Cejudo can take in 3 rounds of the 5, can take Matty Moss down and hold him there, he can get this win. However, I don't think that's going to happen. But that's the way he'll do it. And we'll know, I think, early on by the first round, Jay. I think we'll probably agree. But if you disagree with me, please tell me where you disagree. No. We'll know in the first round.
Yeah, you'll know in the first round. If he can take Mighty Mouse down in the first round and keep him down there for, let's say, even 20 seconds, I say he's got a shot. But when have you ever seen Mighty Mouse get taken down for 20 seconds? Like, that guy pops right back up. He's Superman. He's crazy.
The only time is Ian McCall, but that was way a long time ago, man. He's grown from that. I don't think that would happen again.
Yeah, he's such a different fighter now, and my favorite fighter by far. He's just an amazing fighter. So anyway, we will be talking in depth about that when that fight comes closer and we make our official picks. But yeah, right now I'm just saying Demetrius Johnson's going to beat him.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. And Mike, we're going to get into our fighter of the month since we've been out and kind of lost track here for January.
Fighter of the month.
Let me hear your fighter of the month for January.
I was thinking Stipe Miocic because, he got that win, stepped up, try and save 197. You look at Anthony Johnson, he's fantastic looking. I mean, just destroyed Bader. But it's got to go Dominic Cruz, man. The guy comes back, maybe not after 4 years, but basically after 4 years, and puts a competitive fight on against the champ, TJ Dillashaw. Wins that fight. I know some of us thought he lost it. Some of us thought he won the fight. But to go toe-to-toe with TJ Dillashaw and how good he's looked, Dominic Cruz, win or lose, fighter of the month.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I actually went to who you named before that, which was Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson is my fighter of the month for January, and it's no brainer. It's because he just dominated Bader, and he's on his way to that title shot, and he's going to put up a great fight against John Jones eventually, and I think take it. So he is my fighter of the month for January. All right, Mike. So since we're at the end of the show now, I'm going to give it to you and let you talk about when we will be back and anything else you want to add into there before we go.
Yeah, our next podcast will be after UFC Fight Night 83. That will be a Sunday with Cowboy Cerrone versus the other Cowboy Oliveira. That also has Cody Garbrandt versus John Lineker. Some pretty good lower weight class guys there. But before that, on the 20th, which is going to be a Saturday, Marlon Moraes is going to fight Joseph Barajas. Moraes is going to defend his bantamweight title at World Series of Fighting 28. And Friday, yes, we have all 3 promotions all weekend. Friday on the 19th, Jay's been very excited about this. We have Bellator 149, Hoist Gracie versus Shamrock. Ken Shamrock 3, and Kimbo Slice versus Dada 5000. No. Jay, go ahead. Let me know. What do you think?
I don't even want to hear about this Dada 5000 stuff, all right?
Would I sweeten the pot if I told you that Melvin Gillard will be on that card as well?
Oh, you're making it even better for me. I'll be there. I think I'm going to buy tickets. Let's go.
So anyway, we'll cover those fights. Not a ton really. So most of it will probably be just those fights I just read off. Of course, there'll be a lot of news coming up as well. Check out the Facebook. Doing the best I can on that. Jay chimes in on there too, so you get both of us talking about fights as well. In between podcasts. Twitter, Jay, what's going on besides that?
Well, you can follow us on Twitter at MMA Think Tank PC. And always go to the Facebook site. Mike's constantly updating it all the time, news articles and things that he's written, posting pictures, all kinds of stuff. It's a really cool site to check out and delve into mixed martial arts even a little further than we get into sometimes on the podcast. Also, you can check us out on YouTube at MMA Think Tank Podcast, and we're everywhere. MMA Think Tank at gmail.com. That's where you can email us as well. Just Google us and you can find where we're at out there on the interwebs. Anyway, Mike, let's just go ahead and wrap it up now. And until next time, guys, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.